Hello. I'm so glad that you could come back to continue with the preparations and planning for your very exciting Saturnalia event. I truly appreciate that you are a very busy individual, and I know that it is no small feat to meet not once but twice about the same subject. However, I think once I have spoken to you about everything that I must today and shown you everything that I would like to today, I think that you will agree that the preparations for the tables and the decor is one of the most essential parts of planning your Saturnalia event. And truly, aside from the food and the wine and perhaps the entertainment, it is the most important part of your Saturnalia event. Now you can see I have something of a tableau set out for you here today with a few different kinds of things for you to look at. I will run through them piece by piece, so please do try to absorb the atmosphere and just relax and allow me to take you on a journey of the different aspects of the table setting and decorations that I have conceptualized for you. Does that sound good? Great. I'm very glad. Okay, well, let me begin with what must be the most obvious thing for you to observe, which is, of course, that there is an abundance of candles here. We have some traditional pillar candles, like this, some tall ones, and of course these smaller sized pillar candles. We have some floating candles. These are of course floating in water. They are completely suspended and they will not sink. You can light them and they will burn all the way down without sinking into the water. And we have chosen to display them in these spherical glass frames because we think this really highlights and accentuates the beauty of the light and reflects and casts the light in a really magical way. So this is one example of a, let us say, some sort of a nook or a cranny in your party that may have a cascade of candles in a tableau such as this. You have some height and some mid-range and some smaller items to give a really warm, kind of homely, but also somewhat mystic and mysterious feel. And in the interstices between the lights, one imagines the shadows, and one begins to contemplate the things that one might do in those shadows and contemplate the possibility of the space between the lights. And that's certainly what we want your guests to be thinking about. Now you see here we have a different sort of light. We have some tea light candles, the ever popular tea light candles. What I have done here is I have put them in the bottom of an assortment of glass jars. These are of course authentic recycled glass jars. They are not virgin glass. Here we are not in the business of pretending to be environmentally ethical and sustainable. We in fact genuinely are. So you won't find any, for example, mason jars with handles molded onto them. I have for you two different kinds of decoration, and this is just really two samples of what you might have. Of course, the color palette is entirely up to you, but I was just following my intuition as regards what you might be interested in, and I came up with this based on my reading of you when we last met. So you can see here I have some aquamarine lace tied in a bow, and this is a very delicate lace, very intricate. You might call it turquoise if you are so inclined. So this gives one particular type of effect. I think it might put you in mind of, say, a traditional home craft. Perhaps your grandmother making jam and tying bows around the jar like this. And then we have this alternative style where we have some twine tied in bows around the jars. Again, this gives a vintage sort of feel, a traditional feel. It's very home crafts. It's very rustic, and it gives you a more muted palette. If you chose to have very vibrant colours among the rest of your decor, choosing to have a muted sort of twine colour on your lighting might be the best way to go, because you then are not competing with the other colours in your decor. Of course, if you want colours to compete, that is also one particular type of aesthetic that you might wish to go for. However, I did listen to what it was that we discussed last time you were here, and that is why I have produced here what I think is quite a specific aesthetic. So I said the word rustic before, and I think you will recognize it from our previous conversation. I recall that rustic and vintage were two important words in our previous conversation. So, now that I have talked you through some of the candle options, I would like to draw your attention to some of the other elements on the table. I have here some doilies, some crocheted lace, as you can see right here. However, before we get to that, I would like to show you an idea that I had for your tables for the menus. So as you will recall from last time you were here, we have an extensive menu, and of course this can be a little difficult for guests to remember what's on offer, particularly as they become more and more debauched and inebriated and addled by the events of the evening. So it is often good to have a menu available. So that is what I have prepared for you here. This is just a little menu on a stick. So it's just on a skewer cocktail type stick here. And the idea would be that you could stick this in a flower arrangement, or you could put it in a glass or a vase, or you could indeed have your masters come slaves holding them for people to look at, or indeed you could use it as a fan to fan yourself if it gets a little warm, or have your master/slaves fanning each other. Now you can see here I have put a little bow on the bottom. This actually ties in with the color of our candle here in the aquamarine or the turquoise, and then this is a little turquoise bow, and we have used some recycled brown paper on the outside, and then some textured recycled cream colored paper of the finest grade And then we have had our designer put together some beautiful typeface and design elements to come up with a very classy, really aesthetically pleasing menu that you will feel proud to display to your guests, and it will truly feel like part of the decoration rather than some sort of utility. Now, something else you may have noticed here is a similar little item. This is a little piece of decoration I came up with, not based on any of our conversations. It's just a little handmade flag. As you can see, it has been cut out with pinking shears, just like your menu. And we have created this in a deeper teal color. So you have your pale turquoise or aquamarine here, and then a glittery, shiny sort of teal texture for your flag, like so. So it tones in, but it's not too matchy, which of course is a little more classy. We all know how to match colors, but it looks a little more sophisticated if you tone them. And I've included the bow, and this simply says cheers. Here's one we prepared for a client from Slovakia. So this one says na zdravie, but of course you can have anything you like. You may have cheers printed on it. You may have bottoms up. You may choose to say, kiss the person next to you. That would certainly be an exciting prompt for your guests for the evening. And what you will find is, because it's on a stick, people will tend to carry it around with them, and you will find lots of memories the following morning of people having moments with these sticks, sparking conversations and being waved around to punctuate points. And of course, with these being on skewer sticks, pointy at the end, nothing could possibly go wrong. Now, since I have shown you these, I'm just going to move those away for a moment because I have something quite exciting to show you. This is in the subject of candles once again. We do have one very special kind of candle available at present, which I would be delighted to offer to you complimentary, but it is usually an add-on. Of course, you are a very special guest, an honored guest. We have a local artisan who hand makes these teacup candles. As you may notice, this candle has been created directly inside the teacup, and it is a genuine teacup, just like the kind your grandparents and great-grandparents would have sipped from. The wax is poured directly into the cup. This is a frankincense and myrrh scented candle, and in addition to being absolutely delightful smelling, it really adds a sense of whimsy to your event as your guests notice these little magical little teacups dotted around the place, bearing the light. And you may find some extra frivolity will be provided to your evening when certain among the guests, and I think you can predict who they will be, decide to attempt to drink from the teacups as though they were still functioning as they were when created. And oh, what frivolity will be had when your more boisterous and foolhardy friends come into contact with the hot wax. We also offer a delightful little vintage glass tray on which you may rest these teacups. We don't like overspill here at our events company, so we are very happy to provide these crystal and glass plate options for you. Now I will put this one back out of sight because I wish to show you something else that excites me. So as I mentioned before, I have some crocheted and lace doilies here. As you see, these candles are arranged on a single crocheted doily, and we have a central doily running down the table. I have a variety of these available to create the type of aesthetic that we talked about. So you may have noticed already the table is set with a Hessian, or you might say burlap tablecloth, and along with the crocheted doilies, really gives a lovely warm vintage comforting sort of, not too fancy, not overly styled sort of feel. Now my recommendation with arranging these would be to have them a little haphazardly, as I have done here. There is a single lace doily here just butting up against the central runner, and then I have my other one under the candles here. And I would recommend placing these smaller doilies strategically along the length of the table, perhaps one under your flower setting and one under anything else that you would like to feature, such as a vase or a menu or a flag or indeed a sign. Now these are not the only doilies that I have. I want to show you some in my collection. I have a variety of sizes, as I said. Here is a small sized doily. This is just a little round one, and it's in quite a simple style. You can see how it is crocheted when the light comes through it. You can see where all the little holes are, and you may imagine it as a sort of dappling through the trees. This would be good for a single statement, either candle or a flower centerpiece, or something small like a glass or a single candlestick or a pillar candle. Then we have some more complicated designs. So in order to show you these, I will just move my glass candles out of the way. It's important to me that you get a true sense of these decorative items. This is a crocheted square, or you may say oblong piece. It's not simply cream, this one. It is bordered by a caramel, or you might say coffee brown thread. It is bordered with these little flowers, and it is enhanced by this beautiful motif of larger sized flowers with this undulating pattern that may remind you of a creek or a river, and it may confuse your guests' eyes after a certain point in the evening, which could lead to all sorts of fun. This is wonderful as the dead center of your table, as when you place something here in the middle of it, there's still plenty to see around the border. And we'll just put that one away. Now, if you like something that's even more of a statement, then I think I know the one for you. This is a centerpiece which is highly contrasted, highly detailed, and it depicts a repeating pattern of grape leaves from the grapevine. So, of course, reminds us of the reasons why we're here. Alternatively, this one is big enough to place on a small table to be a complete topper for that table. The other wonderful thing about this piece is that rather than crocheted, it is actually linen, which has been embroidered and then cut. And because it is linen, it is a natural and very strong, very hardy fabric, which your guests, try though they may, are unlikely to be able to do too much damage to. And of course we would not like to discourage them from trying, so it's wise to have some materials which can withstand their boisterous efforts. So we'll pop that one away. And I just have one more to show you. We do in fact have an extensive collection, many dozens more of these. However, we do have some repetitions of the same style, so I thought I would show you some examples from each of the different types of style. Now I have shown you some crocheted and some linen. This one here is in fact a combination of both. So you have a linen disc in the center, just like the sun, which is at the center of our world. And then you have your crocheted border, and you turn this. It may put you in mind of the turning of the planetary motions, and perhaps even in the right light might put you in the mind of Saturn. And I wonder why that would be. This is a lovely little piece which can act as a centerpiece. The wonderful thing about these sort of medium-sized pieces is that you can range your candle clusters upon them and come up with a lovely little array, which feels quite natural, quite artistic. One piece of advice I would definitely impart is that uneven clusters tend to be more aesthetically pleasing than even ones. So you want groups of 3 or 5 or 7 or 9 or 15, 21, 365 candles. See? Okay. Now I'm just going to take these out of the way, because the last thing that I want to talk to you about is this little sign here. When we last spoke, I mentioned that you could have any kind of sign that you like. And we talked about how you may want to consider the gift-giving aspect of Saturnalia. Now, of course, as you are such a traditionalist and so classy, I think we discovered that you were intending to bestow gifts upon your guests. And so this is the perfect kind of setup. What I would advise is having this sort of sign on top of a table on its own, with, for example, this sort of doily underneath it, just to kind of draw attention to the fact that you should be looking at this item. I have chosen here some artwork in a typeface that, again, reminds us of tradition, traditional products, traditional foods, many of which you will have at your feast. And then, of course, I have some bows to tie in with the theme. And of course, it reminds us that this is a gift-giving occasion and bows are most commonly found on gifts. Now, this is simply a plain painter's canvas which we have painted for you, and I would be happy to provide this as part of your party. And it has been put on a traditional painter's easel, like so. We have these in a number of sizes, so you can have all kinds of signs if you need to direct your guests this way and that. It shouldn't be too difficult to do so, considering, of course, their mental state at the time. Now, perhaps to assist your imagination, you would like to see a blank canvas, as it were. Here is what it would look like on its own, and you could design anything that you like for your sign. We can work with you to design something to put on it. We have some very accomplished designers here who will be very happy to help your guests ease their way from room to room and towards their gifts when they have imbibed a little too generously. Now, that is the sum of everything that I wanted to show to you today. So I would be very pleased to offer you this package for a discounted offer, which I mentioned in my letter of correspondence. Of course, you can tailor this offer. You can cherry pick one thing or another. You don't have to take all of these items. So let me just run through and see how you feel about the pillar candles. You do like? Yes? So lots of pillar candles, yes? And do you like the height tableau with the smaller ones and the larger ones? Yes? And how about these floating candles? Are you pleased by the aesthetic that they contribute to the ambience? Yes? Good. And how would you like the ratio of the floating candles to the pillar candles? About 1/3 to 2/3? Yes. I would say aesthetically that's going to be very pleasing. And how did you feel about the assortment of jar candles? We have quite literally hundreds of these in all different sizes, as they are all recycled. Here's what it looks like put together. Oh no, you're absolutely not obliged to go with the yellow. So if you like the turquoise but you don't like the yellow, we can find another colour that complements in with the ski. So, okay, so you do like this one. Okay, and what about the twine? Have you a feeling about the twine candles? Okay, some. Okay, so maybe we can pick some strategic areas where we can put just the twine ones on their own, and then cluster the ones with the ribbons. So we cluster like with like. Okay, that's great. And of the doilies, you can of course choose all, or none, or some. There's no rules here. Okay. Yes, I agree. I think variety is certainly best, particularly for the aesthetic that you're trying to create here. And finally, how about those menus? You'd like some menu cards? Okay, not quite so many bows. Yes, I certainly understand that. Sometimes it does skew the demographic a little too young when you have too many bows. So what we can do is just put the odd one, perhaps just the one on the menu or the one on the accent flag, but not both. And perhaps we can find something else to decorate the cards and gifts sign. But you would like to keep one, yes. Okay, wonderful. Well, I think that we have everything that we need to be going on with progressing your wonderful Saturnalia party. I'm certainly excited to be planning it for you. And I shall be very excited to watch the proceedings on the evening. And indeed to be there to assist the next day. Alright, it was so great seeing you, and I'll be in touch very soon.